Welcome everyone to our Week 2 Hangout or webinar for our CMALT CMOOC. And we're looking today at the first core part of the CMALT portfolio, which is operational issues. It's the actual second part of the portfolio, but the first part is the contextual statement is not actually reviewed as such. So we've got with us this morning so far. We see that Ben's just joined us. Great to have you, Ben.
Hello, Tom. How are you doing? Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hiya, Ben.
We've got Raj.
Yeah.
Raj Shekhawat.
Hi,
And we
Ben.
have Todd.
Right.
Todd Stretton.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
And myself. And for some reason this morning my webcam is not working, so you don't get to see me, but that's okay. So this week, as we've just been saying, we're discussing operational issues. So it's the first core part of the CMALT portfolio. And let's just start by seeing where everyone's at. So let's go, Raj, where are you at with your portfolio?
As I shared last time, there's no further update from there. I'm still waiting to hear back from the reviewers' comment on my resubmission. And I think, yeah, so that's my status at the moment. And I think this operational issue has got three important parts, isn't it? The first one is constraint and benefit of technology. And
That's correct.
The third one is supporting the deployment of learning technology. And the second one is, if I remember correctly, technical knowledge and ability in the use of learning technology.
Excellent. You've got all three.
So I think for me, it was quite interesting to work through these things. Initially talk about the things which I have done under some of these things, and then reflecting on all of these things. So that's what I've done in my portfolio.
Was there a specific issue that you looked at, Raj?
I think when it comes to constraints and benefit of technology, that was the one specific part where I sort of try and highlighted some of the benefits and also some of the challenges, basically, which I encountered. Like, you know, we can't really like, technology has a lot of benefits if used really, really well. But having said that, there are always times where when I have encountered that something or the other not working. So we got to always be prepared for that, and also have a plan in place about how we can't. What I'm trying to say is we can't completely rely on technology per se for something.
Sure. So I think, as you say, having a plan B is always a good idea, and having multiple ways of doing something is a way to mitigate, I guess, any issues around technology falling over when you really need it. So Todd, what about yourself? I mean, you've already got your CMALT accreditation, but can you remember what you went over for your operational issues section?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I think as far as the benefits and constraints, that's something that was always good. And I know, Tom, you prompted me to do this, is, you know, making a reflection as you're using the different types of technology, because you can say how it went well and what were some of the constraints. And I know we've just started using Panopto as far as video capture of lecture for students, and you know, what might be quite a simple thing, being able to think at the time the benefits and constraints has been helpful. I haven't posted it up as a blog as yet, but just remembering as far as when I did put in the portfolio in December, it is helpful to make those reflections. And as far as thinking about the other areas, so as far as the technical knowledge, it's that flow on of, well, now I've used this type of technology, what is your knowledge around that? And what I found difficult there was just making sure that I kept my descriptions of it really brief. And what they do want more is the overall reflection. So Yeah, and in terms of supporting deployment, it's again making sure that you're documenting those conversations that you have with other people when you're considering, say, for the likes of the Panopto, when you're helping someone start up for the first time, just making sure that you're keeping a note of what you have talked about. And I've been doing it in email. So we met, and this is what we talked about, and then that can be used as part of your portfolio too.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Todd. And I think that's a good point too, when you were talking about, I suppose, keeping up to date. That's a key element of a CMALT portfolio, is the commitment to keep up to date with technology. And of course, technology changes very rapidly. So I think one of the key things you want to just get into your daily workflow really is recording perhaps some of those critical issues around technology as it changes, and how you're addressing that and what the impact is, so that when it comes around to updating your portfolio, if you want to go to senior, or to keep your CMALT accreditation in 3 years' time, you need to update your portfolio. So having recorded those interactions with technology as it changes and how it's impacted your practice and what you did about that, your reflections on that along the way, just makes your life easier when you come to update your portfolio. So Ben, have you had a chance this week to reflect on operational issues, constraints and benefits of learning technology, or any other areas of wisdom that you can give us?
Yeah, so I have started with the contextual statement, and I just went through a few other ones which were already on the website, and I realized that the description says we have to be really brief with some of the explanation, but as I went through some of the other people's work, I realized that they were quite comprehensive. So there were slides, there were even papers and things included within the contextual statement. So my question is, should we be really brief with the statement, or should we just, be as detailed as possible? So that's one thing. The other thing with regards to the operational issues, at the moment I'm not teaching, I'm focused on research. So I've used analysis softwares to keep track of the analysis work I'm doing. So yes, they are quite useful when it comes to giving you a broader picture of what is going on. It makes my job quite systematic. It gives me the wider picture that, look, I started from here. Here is where I'm going, and here is what I should do. These are the challenges that I'm facing, and what I should be doing about those challenges. The other benefit that I've had with these analysis softwares is that there is a community around this software. So if there is any question I have, I can post, the question, and there are people who have had similar experiences, so they share their experience with me, or if there's a problem, then they help to kind of solve the problem. So this is the very interesting part of it. However, there is also a challenge which sometimes I think is quite time consuming to go through all the steps, and it takes a long time. So that's a time factor. But overall, I think technology is, with the work I'm doing, has been quite useful, and it helps me to better reflect on what I'm doing.
Cool. Thanks for that, Ben. And just one of the things, I suppose, you're talking about what sort of depth do you need to go into with your descriptions. The guidelines for the CMALT portfolio say around about 500 words per section, which is pretty brief, really. And within that, you've got three main elements. So each part of your portfolio, when you're looking at a section, so operational issues, you need to describe the activity or the situation, the event that you're using as your evidence that you're talking about as your illustration. You want to keep that relatively brief, but enough detail so people know what you did. And then the second part is providing evidence. So that may be just a link. So it could be a link to a document. It could be a link to a video of you doing what you're doing. It could be a link to, a Twitter stream, using a hashtag if you used social media to curate what you're doing. So it could be an embedded PDF. It could be a screenshot. Any sort of media really that provides evidence that you actually did what you say you're talking about. And then the core thing for each section is the reflection. So the critical element is, what was the impact of this upon you and upon your practice? What did you learn? Did it help you grow? Not everything is beneficial, so there are going to be things that obviously are negative. And how did you deal with that? And then, of course, the impact upon your colleagues, if you're working with other academics, or if you're teaching, then what was the impact on your teaching practice and your students? So that's the common way of approaching each section is around 500 words, but I know most of the portfolios I've seen have at least doubled that. And then splitting that into three sections: description, evidence, and reflection, with the reflection definitely being the key.
Can I share my experience for Ben?
Yeah, right.
So Ben, I faced exactly the same thing what you're mentioning, and I was in an impression that it's the 500 for this particular section. So I need to cover these three things with these three subparts within 500 words, and which was quite challenging. So what I did was I tried to kind of keep things really concise. And then the feedback which I received from assessors was that, go ahead, describe that more, go ahead, describe this more. And then I realized that, especially for this particular section, feel free to focus on each of these three elements as like a standalone, and try and make sure that you put the description, the reflection really well, and of course the evidence really well. And then that's an informal tip of mine to you, that once you are happy with your description and the evidence and the reflection, don't be too fussed about the word limits only for this particular section. Then let the assessors come back to you in terms of if they want you to cut short of something or things like that. Because if you go for a very restrictive, very conservative approach, they will most certainly ask you to add more for sure.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip, Raj. I think it's easier to have more and then cut it back than have not enough and have your portfolio, come back for revision. And I think Raj is right, as he says, because there's three subsections within that core area, effectively you're really after 500 words for each subsection.
The other thing, Ben, to appreciate is just remember that the contextual statement isn't assessed. So it's ready for the assessors to be able to get an overview as to who you are and what area you're interested in. So that's why you might see the contextual statements being a bit bigger than the 500 words.
That's right.
As long as it's got meaning for the assessor and it gives them the context of who you are, I think that's what they're looking for. And they do talk about it being written as if it was a cover letter for a job application. So if you're able to get access to the latest 2019 guidelines, I think on page 4 it talks about that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So we've also got joining us Tom Worthington all the way from Canberra. So welcome, Tom. And we also have Vikul and we have a little mini-me there as well, hiding in the background.
Yes, she's home today. She's teething, and so you know what comes with teething.
So I hope she's been working on her CMALT portfolio.
Oh, flat out.
Hey, good to have you here with us today, Vikul.
Oh, good to be there. Good to be here.
So
And good morning from Canberra.
Yeah.
Good morning, Tom. Yeah.
Wasn't sure if your microphone was working, Tom.
Well, I went to switch it on and instead I switched it off.
Well, there's a constraint of technology here. So, Tom, have you been able to do some work on this section of your portfolio this week, or where are you at?
Well, I must admit I got a bit slack. Partly, I was sitting there waiting for a prompt, you know, and I didn't get one, so I didn't do it. I've been a bit busy at the university this week with one thing and another. I was my ears picked up when you said write it like a job application cover letter, since that's what I'm teaching the students to do this semester, which is to write a job application. So it might be a case of physician heal thyself, where I'll listen to the advice I give the students and apply the same thing to my own writing.
That sounds like a good plan. And I think the other thing too is to you can keep your descriptions relatively brief if your evidence is, I suppose if it's multimedia evidence, in other words, it's quite deep. So if it's your evidence is a reflection video or a video of you doing something, then obviously that's very rich evidence, and so a lot of the description doesn't have to be as detailed because the description is actually inside your evidence. So just coming back to Raj and being on, how much should the description be? So just got screen sharing at the moment. I've just got the WordPress link here just to remind everyone that we're into week 2 and it's exploring the constraints, benefits, learning technology. Well, that's actually part of operational issues. So there were 3 activities that we suggested people do, and it sounds like most people are probably going to be doing them over the weekend, but like Tom, we're catching up there. So one was a digital literacy mapping exercise, and really we've put this here because I think it's a good way of reflecting on what technology you use, how you use it, and what the impact is, or what the potential impact could be. So if you haven't come across this before, it's a concept around the visitors and resident model of particularly social media, but digital literacies, and it was put forward by David White from the UK, really in response to the digital native myth coming from Prensky that teenagers these days are born into technology and their brains are therefore different and they know everything about technology, and us old people don't know anything. We're the immigrants and all we do is look silly because our students know everything, which is a bunch of rubbish. So really it was a way of selling games. He was a game developer, and the evidence that he used was very poor and very select. So what we really find is that it's a matter of where you spend your time. So if you're spending your time using technology all the time, you are going to be an expert in it. If you only occasionally dabble in certain technologies, then you're going to be effectively a visitor and not necessarily an expert in it. And so what we find when we do some of these mapping exercises and get ourselves to do them with our students, and let's just pull one up as an example, we tend to find that our students are experts in things like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and they use them socially. They don't use them professionally. So it depends with what the domain is that you're using these tools. And once we get them to explore other tools like, say, WordPress or LinkedIn, Evernote, perhaps some of the LMS type tools, then they're certainly visitors and very seldom use them and are quite uncomfortable in those spaces. So by mapping out what technologies you use and how you use them within either a professional or social domain, it's a way of reflecting on the impact of those technologies. Nice graphical way of doing it. Here's a really messy one. So it's just a way to trigger that sort of reflection of what is the impact of technology on your personal practicing on your professional practice and what is the potential to change it. So I quite like this one here from Paul Devine, where what he's done is added some arrows, and the arrows are how could I actually move how I use some of these technologies into the professional domain. So from the visitor sort of quadrant, and moving them more into the resident domain, in other words, using them more professionally, and perhaps moving some of the social tools into that professional domain as well. So certainly for our students, this top domain here, the professional resident, will tend to be quite poor. And what's heavily populated is the social resident down here. So as a comparative tool, I think it's quite useful as well. So that's the digital literacy mapping exercise. And if you haven't done one of those already, it's just a really interesting thing to do, just very quick. You can do it, sketch it on a piece of paper, take a photo of it, share it, or if you've got, you know, a tablet with a pen, say the iPad, then you can do a really cool one and share that and export it for us to have a look. The other thing was to get involved in the discussion forums on community.sotel.nz. And we're really keen to get a few more people interacting there. As Tom said, it'd be nice to get some feedback, get some prompts. You know, you tend to respond when people actually ask you questions or give you feedback. If there's nothing happening in that space, then you feel very, you know, isolated. And of course, then the other activity was to join this webinar. So we've got a few this morning, which is awesome. So just pointing to our community. Now, probably everyone in this hangout is obviously aware of it, but there'll be a few watching that perhaps haven't dabbled into here yet. So the link is community.sotel.nz. Then you will find the CMALT discussion forum. There's a few links to some of our supporting resources there. And as you scroll down, you'll see the various discussion topics that we've started. There's a few with replies. Be nice to see a few more replies from the community. And then each week, once you've actually managed to put together some work on your portfolio, we'd encourage you to share it in the project bank as well, which is linked from our WordPress site up the top there, project bank. And we've got lots of examples of contextual statements, not so many as we go through the other sections. So just encourage people to share an operational issues example. So from this week, we have Dave Nichols. He's done one there. And we can go and have a look. This is the photo from outside his building. Makes AUT look a bit dreary. And basically, it's a link to a blog post where he's reflected on some operational issues. So have a look, give him a rating, give him some feedback. I've already given him some feedback there. You can see we've worked through a couple of technical issues that he had with his post. But he's done quite a nice job. And it'd be good for him to get some feedback, particularly from people who've already got their CMALT accreditation. So there's Dave's initial post around operational issues. We also have a growing YouTube playlist of videos. So from the iterations of the CMOOC, you can see our various webinars, interviews with people sharing their stuff. And one of the latest ones, if you want to have a bit of a quick look, is from our paramedic lecturers introducing themselves. And here they are here. And this is just a quick and easy way of sharing who you are, what you're about. I like doing these little videos. It's just a really quick way of, you know, putting a face to who you are. So you can find Norm Wilkinson there. Find out about Norm, give him some feedback on his video as well. The other tool that we've been using is our Google Map, and you can see people have put themselves on the map here. There's Tom in Canberra, Norm, our latest edition, one of our paramedic lecturers, etc., etc. Just pop yourself on the map somewhere, and if you want to put some detail about who you are and what you do, that would be great as well. There's my one, it's my Twitter profile. So there we go, sort of brief lightning view over this week, and just hoping that people will really start interacting a bit more. and giving us some feedback. So, Vikal, you're the one that we haven't actually asked where you're at with your portfolio so far. So let's put you on the spotlight there.
Clicking around. I actually, well, this is last year. It's almost done. I'm just trying to put final touches and hopefully get it submitted this iteration.
So you've obviously done your operational issues. Was there a particular, what issues did you select?
Hang on a minute.
What technology are you using with Myra?
She's at the moment into iPad, the big one. She doesn't like the small one. But for operational issues, I think I've got a few that I've got on the document. I actually can't remember. This is how long I've actually done that. Long ago, when I did it. Pushed it. I'll have to open the doc, Tom. Hang on.
It's okay. Well, we're kind of 1 minute away from our ending our webinar for this week. Are there any issues that anyone would like to discuss, talk about?
I just have a quick suggestion for Vikal.
Yeah.
I think I recently submitted my HEA like yesterday, and I was trying to sleep over it from past 2 weeks because every day I will look at it, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a break for a day or two, come back to it, and every time I'll come back, I'll always identify 1 or 2 errors, but then that sort of, it's like a vicious cycle. You get into it and then you never feel that, okay, maybe you think maybe I'll take a little bit more time, maybe I'll take a little more time, but at some stage you have to be like, you know what, I have done my bits, I need to just submit it. So feel free to let it go, Vikal, when the right time comes. Okay.
Yeah, but my problem is I'm actually not trying to polish it up. My problem is I'm just trying to finish the sections. I've got things there.
Okay.
I've written it. I just need. It was a very quick draft, so I just have to go through it, and just finish it all.
Fair enough. In that case, of course, you need to take time. Yeah.
Yeah. So my operational issues, I actually tried to reflect from some time ago. Like when I first started, and I was working at a distance learning environment, set up. And students were actually given computers, and at the time constraints were internet and things like that. So I'm actually trying to build a reflective portfolio. It's almost like my journey right from the start. So there's a small paragraph about that, and then moving on to another job, and the issues there were like lack of technology and the technologies which we were using and things like that. So, and then I slowly move into my current job and start talking about technologies that I use, like mobile devices, and few examples there. Of course, a reoccurring theme in the constraints is the LMS and what it does best and what it doesn't. And then technologies that I've used along the way, like blogging platforms and things like that. So I'm trying to write a very succinct sort of a summary of my career so far.
Cool. Well, thanks for that, Vikal. It sounds like we better let you get back tomorrow there. And just to sort of wrap up for today, yeah, I agree. I think doing the CMALT portfolio was a great opportunity to create an overview, I suppose, of, for me, a 20-year career in learning technology, and just to sort of really reflect on the key issues that I've learned along the way. Of course, there are other people that are a lot newer to it, and that's fine. And there will be an associate CMALT level coming out very shortly, which for people with a little bit less experience to get on board. And then, of course, the CMALT, and then senior CMALT for those with more experience. So thank you, everyone, for being involved in the discussion today. Great to have you here. Looking forward to seeing you share some of your work, share on the project bank, your operational issues, and look forward to interacting over the next few weeks. So thanks a lot. We'll end the broadcast, and we'll catch you all later.